we're we're really engaged in this moment, not to take away from obviously the pandemic and everything else that's going on, but engaged in not one but simultaneously so many social experiments, right? And so the desire to like stop and take stock and talk about like how, for instance, teaching has changed over. I'm motioning up here at my desktop computer because that's my actual high school workstation just up above my mat. That's an arrangement on purpose, by the way. Like I actually think, there's innovation number one. I would say how much happier would I have been in a school if I could have had my yoga mat rolled out right beside my desk? No joke. So yeah, no, not even right back. Like more like everyone, we're gonna take 5 and gonna do something here, and then go back to using this part of our body. But yeah, I mean, we could just go down so many rabbit holes because it's just, yeah, I'm fascinated. I have so much to say about teaching in this environment, so I will say nothing. Was there? Someone was gonna say there. I think I didn't want to step on them. Mm-hmm. Really? Yeah. 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 Well, sorry. Yeah. One of there's so many different like kind of core teachings of yoga meditation that I think, like as a teacher, that I could pick up and say like, today we're going to talk about suffering, or today we're going to practice with this or that. But certainly like the theme of change, like that it's central, right? Because it's in essence, it is the human experience, right? Like is constant, unrelenting change, and our ability to deal with that with more or less equanimity, right? Like, can we be chill about our experience? Can we be curious, or are we like, like fighting it all the way along, right? And particular, like that's what's so amazing about, again, not necessarily amazing good, but just remarkable, is that what we're going through right now is just like the change that's always there. We can't ignore it right now. It's like whap, whap, whap. It's just hitting us in the face all right. So I think that actually is that there's our segue to practicing a little yoga asana, because when our well, and in fact, so I have to explain this because we're having this whole conversation. I started the tape rolling on the other side. I was rightly, for people that are watching after the fact, I was rightly just called out on the fact that I was addressing a group of people with epilepsy about the life going whap whap whap. Although what I would say, and that's fair, that's absolutely that's quite right. But I think that's all, like it's everybody. But yes, your point is well taken. That that probably speaks to the wisdom of the group, that comment, as indicative of it, right? You want to do? Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, and it's all of it. It's all you're right. It's all of it. And I mean, I had emailed Rosie a few weeks ago and said how much I missed her smile, which is true. Like in her laugh, and it's like I was just struck by. It. I was like, oh, I want to be in the same room as this other human being who's so wonderful. You know what I mean? And but or like I was thinking, like our group this last holiday season, because there was an event being held, we were planning on going for a post practice beer, and it didn't happen. And I in looking back on that, it's like, oh, that was such. We didn't know at the time what a missed opportunity that was, right? So but that gives us something to we're looking forward to in the future, hopefully. And we don't have to look forward to, because here we are right now, further to your point, all connecting in this way. And I was just saying to a friend offline that I'm in the habit of sitting in hero pose for long periods of time. And someone, I can't remember who it was, rightly asked, just a voice from the wilderness the other day, dear, can we come out of that pose? My legs are killing me. I'm sorry, I often am just, it's not even autopilot. It's just like, you wouldn't ask someone who's sitting in a chair or standing up straight, like, why are you doing that? Aren't you getting tired? I don't think about it, but I apologize if anyone was thinking that you had to be there. Let's get started, shall we? Okay. So I mentioned in the email that I sent out that we would play with some opposites. So what I thought we would do is I'm gonna give you lots of options today. And I guess what I would say to this is the right option is always the one that feels good, okay? That good is not the same as easy, but you can decide what you want on a particular day. Easy might be all that it's about. And here's my one little soapbox bit for today before we get really moving our bodies. When I started practicing yoga, it wasn't even a marathon. It was a sprint marathon. How hard can I practice? How frequently? How can I see evidence of growth in my practice in terms of my physical capacity, mental, emotional capacity? I don't know, we'll get to that later. Like, I don't know, maybe never, that kind of, and it was only with the passage of time that I would say I've got the, maybe increased wisdom to see that is not, at least for me, that was a wonderful practice, but is not necessarily a healthy, sustainable one, and it's not a balanced one. So like for me in this last week, although that kind of go, like lots of salutations and I'm dripping sweat everywhere kind of practice, I still do that a couple of times a week, right? At least. But I had to qualify it. But over the last week, I've had almost unremitting headaches because of all of this wind, which is, I see, you feel my pain? Yeah, I've struggled. Yeah, and it has thankfully been something that I haven't dealt with in this kind of intensity in a long time. But this last week, I didn't want to walk the dogs and I didn't want to practice. And when those two things go with it, something's off. So, but here's the thing. I did practice because I didn't practice that hard, go. It was a really gentle, chilled out way of practicing. So for all of you, whether you're here live with me right now or you're tuning in after the fact online, really take this first moment and just kind of gather yourself, okay? Try to figure out where you're at. Not trying to change anything, we're talking about change. Think about the futility of trying to change all that change. Instead, just okay, here I am. What do I need? What is going on? And you don't have to have an answer to that. You're just kind of letting that sit on its own. Your body is smart. It will pick the stuff up. And so you can almost go through the practice making choices for yourselves, okay? We're all practicing in our own space, so you're not disturbing anyone next to you. There's no sort of competitive energy or, oh my gosh, I can't do this or they can do that. Instead, it's just, what do I need? How do I access it? So it might be super gentle, it might be more vigorous. You can decide, you can calibrate. So, as I was saying a few moments ago, sermon ended. So you can still just be sitting with that, letting your body arrive, letting your breath flow naturally on its own. Just kind of chilling out, like you're allowing the rest of the day to just kind of fall away. And you're not really trying to do anything in particular, you're just being. I'm realizing even in doing this, like I'm not looking down for any reason other than the fact that your eyes could be closed here. If they're open, like mine, where I tend to cast them down ahead, just sort of softly unfocused, like everything, we're giving up the effort. Okay, so the practice I'm going to guide you through, it's a series of different shapes, we'll call them. We're not even going to be so worried about poses. And then within those shapes, we're going to play with holding some of the shapes, holding some of those poses, or moving through the poses, maybe a bit more dynamically, okay? And I'm going to let each of you decide what feels best in your body today, what fits with your intention. It might be a hold or even an extra hold. It might be releasing stress, tension, or releasing into the flow of moving your body. I guess what I'm saying is long-winded way of saying sometimes holding feels good, sometimes flowing feels good. Similarly, either can feel challenging, so we're going to play with it. And you can see what comes up, see what doesn't. Okay, so just seated where we are in whatever shape is comfortable for you. So here I'm going to model the practice by getting myself into a shape that's comfortable for me, which is exactly where I was. Okay, so you could be sitting on your bum, you could be sitting on your lower legs, you could be seated in a chair for this, okay? You could equally be standing. I'm not going to do that because of the cameras, but there we are. And then arms kind of just come out in front of us, okay? If you need to balance yourself for support at any time, you can do that. But otherwise, we're just sort of here, almost like you're cradling, I was going to say a puppy. A human puppy works too, okay? A child there, you're right there. And then inhale, take your arms away from one another, spin the thumbs up and back as you raise your arms up overhead. Palms might approach or might come together. Exhale, bring your hands down. And then we're going to continue that. Inhale, trace back up. Exhale, thumbs back and out. Come down. Sweep the hands in together and come up. Let's continue that. A couple more of those. Sweep out. Inhaling to rise. Exhale to allow the hands to come down. I mentioned to people on the way in, inhale, continue that motion. That Henry the yoga dog is all full of beans today, so he'll likely be joining our practice. Don't mind him. Good, and just let that go. Okay, so there's the simple flow, right? And there's a certain rhythmicness to that, and we get our breath moving with it. Notice how this is a little bit different. No weight involved, just little holds. So, hands come to your heart center. Inhale here. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale, allow your hands to come down and open. Inhale. Exhale. On the inhale, bring your arms up to about, like, say 10 and 2. Okay? Inhale. Exhale. Go with what's comfortable. Notice the tendency to bring the arms forward. Can you bring them back into line with your ears? Inhale, come up. Hands come up overhead, palms face forward. Exhale, let your shoulders drop. Inhale, reach up for the sky. Exhale, let your shoulders drop. Inhale, open. Pause here for a breath. Maybe open that chest a little bit further. Inhale, bring the arms down. Exhale, release the shoulders a little further. Inhale, sweep the hands together. Bring them up. exhale. One more breath there. And let that go. Just shake out the hands, shake out the shoulders. Okay? No commentary needed, internally or externally. Well, let's let the practice, we're gonna kind of go from position to position, but you might notice that. How did one practice the real flowy versus the hold? How was that, right? We got a late joiner. Awesome. Welcome. Hey there, welcome. We're already at it, so please join us when you're ready. Okay, so for this one, I'm actually gonna just come to a cross-legged posture in some way, shape, or form, if that's comfortable. Again, this would work in a seat if you're in an actual chair. But if you are down on your bum, what we're gonna do is take both hands and place them behind us, okay? And then simply allow your collarbones to get long. So we're gonna actually this time start with our hold. So holding here, bringing your sternum forward in space, and without pinching, without forcing, the feeling of gliding your shoulder blades in toward your spine, and the sides of your shoulders moving back and around. Like everything's hugging in towards your back and opening your heart and your chest up. You could call this antidote for sitting in front of a screen asana. Okay, and release. Let that go. And then just a little bit of side to side movement, just getting rid of any sort of the residual kinks or tension, because we built up some tension there, right? Okay, now, step 2 is bring both hands out, okay? And actually, even before doing that, just so that we're not slumping, notice if the tendency to be kind of like pitched back in your seat. Can you bring your weight up into, oh, see, dog number 2 is making an appearance. This must be a hot, they can tell it's a real hot session today. Yeah, exactly, they gotta keep an eye on me. You know it. Okay, so instead of slumping back, we're really kind of pitched up onto the very most front part of our sitting bones, okay? Hands come out in front, okay? And then we're gonna interlace our fingers, okay? Turn them out and press our back, okay? So we can move in 2 directions here. Press our hands forward, press our shoulders around, so it feels like your spine is moving behind you and your chest is puffing out, kind of like in cat pose, where we sometimes are, okay? And this can feel quite engaged, so can you soften it a little bit? Use your inhale as a way of noticing if you're holding tension. Try to soften that inhale, exhale. Okay, you can lift the arms up if that feels nice, from side to side, but really it's just about pressing out. We can even kind of mess with things by taking our fingers in the other direction and let that go. And again, just a little side to side. So see that, and yeah, you can kind of really play with anything goes. It's interesting for if you're watching this video after the fact, I actually, it's almost impossible for me not, it's like the mirror neurons start kicking in and it's like I can see people like moving in different ways. I'm like, oh, that would be nice. So it's great. The yoga suggests itself. It kind of rises up out of the groove, right? So that time we did our static holds first. Now let's see if we can flow with this, okay? So we'll start with our hands behind, okay? Find that expansiveness in our chest. Inhale. Exhale, sweep your arms out, interlace, and press. Allow your back to really round here. Inhale, come back, hands place, chest forward. Exhale. One more of those. In, open, exhale. Closing it up, rolling it down. Ooh, yeah, and let that go. Okay? Same poses, same intention, different experience. Okay? So, this is the thing, we don't need to have a whole like encyclopedic knowledge of like this pose or that pose or, you know, whatever. It's like, this is accessible to us all the time. You just like, okay, well, what happens if I move my body this way? What happens if I move it that way? And that's kind of it, right? Okay, let's move. How are we feeling? Yeah? Okay. So from here, where shall we go next? Let's go to tabletop. So we're going to go to on hands, with our hands, knees, and you have options here. I thought with this one, what I'm going to do is, because I've been very careful about like not moving us too far away from the floor, but with this little sequence, I'm going to show you here. Actually, let me move back a little bit so that I'm still in frame. Okay. So what I was going to say is we can be here, okay, in our tabletop. Equally, what you can do is lift the knees up, okay, and then curl the toes and press into a down dog. Now, that might feel accessible and that might not. So if down dog feels nice, okay, or feels like that's a place that you can or want to go, then you can go there. Otherwise, we're here in tabletop, and knees can be down or knees can be up. Cool? Oh, okay, so here's our first pose, and it's a hold. Okay, so and you have 3 stops, 3 different options. Option 1, tabletop, knees on the ground. This doesn't sound like a big deal, but let's all take a moment here. Notice your balance. There's a lot going on. Notice the feeling of whether there's more weight in your hands or your knees or the tops of your feet or your toes, whatever's making contact. Can you balance that feeling as much as possible? Are you holding more weight on the right or the left side of your body? Does it feel like you're not going to be stable. There's movement all through this, just all the little corrections and muscles sort of waking up and turning on just to allow you to hold this position. Does it feel easeful? Like, does it feel like this is a place you could hang out in, or does it feel like there's some effort? What happens if you press a little bit more not into the wrist crease, but more like into the finger bases of your hands? Okay, so the thumb, the index finger, the pinky finger. And then from there, just lift your knees up 1 inch. Okay, or maybe it's 1 knee. Okay, you can try playing with floating 1 knee 1 inch. Again, this sounds like I'm trying to do quote unquote accessible yoga. I am, but it's more than just that. 1 inch, 1 knee is challenging. I don't care who you are. If you've got 1 knee up, maybe switch to the other. And again, it could be a knee or it could be the knee and the toes. Okay, allow it to come down. Now, I'm going to suggest to you that you probably don't lift both knees, both toes, balancing on your hands. That is a yoga thing, but we're not going there. Okay? You want to see me do it? Yeah. That's bad form on now that was by request, but that's bad form. I'm showing off. And I'm doing it without wrists that are warmed up, so it serves me right. Okay. So here now, and you can be there, or like I said, you could have been up in the dog. All of those spots, great spots to hold. Okay, lots and lots of goodness in there. Okay. By the way, I don't know if this is going to show up on camera perfectly, but for those of you out there that might say, oh, I would love to do downward dog. I see people doing it and it seems so great, but it just doesn't, I don't know, for whatever reason. There are a bunch of reasons that it might not feel great, and that's nothing wrong with you or your body, okay? Take that to the bank. But we can achieve a lot of the goodness of that pose. Again, you don't have to move from the mat, but I just wanted to show you an option. Now I'm going to do this here so I stay on camera, but you could do this truly, oh, maybe I do actually fit. Hands onto a table, okay? Feet underneath your hips, and then really kind of rocking, and you can have knees bent here to take the tension out of the backs of your legs, or you can straighten the knees any amount. But regardless of what you do, you're bringing your hips back in space and opening your shoulders. In other words, allowing them to kind of roll down as you pull against the table. So you're tractioning your spine. So really there you're getting a lot of the goodness of down dog without needing to have all of that pressure being brought to bear with your full body weight on your wrists. Okay? So downward dog, not just for dogs and not just for bendy yogis. Okay? And truly, that downward dog at the table, for everyone, 5 times a day, every day, and your life will be changed. Dogs and cats will be living together. People will be living in harmony because of downward dog at the table. That's my story. Okay. You love it. Nice. Good, good, good. I'm glad that we have... I could tell that was generous there. Okay, let's move into a little flow here, okay? I'm gonna demo both of these again, knowing that the second one that I'm gonna show is a bit more advanced in terms of how much body weight you're carrying, but both of them, there's good stuff here, okay? So the first option, we're in our tabletop, and again, turning the eyes of your elbows, so if they're kind of facing one another, the inner elbows, turn them forward, okay? Just opening the shoulders into a nice healthy position, okay? And then from here, let's inhale and drop the belly down. Bum comes up, chin and eyes go up. Okay, so that's cow pose. And then exhale, curl your whole spine, especially your upper back, up toward the ceiling. Exhale all the breath out. And continue. Inhaling and exhaling. And what I'm not going to do is tell you for the next, let's take 5 rounds of that. It might be 5 of the slowest, most luxurious cows transitioning into cats. Or it could be a more rhythmic, sort of wave-like movement through your spine, involving the hips, working the shoulders, maybe working from side to side. There's lots of different ways we can kind of get curious about how our spine moves in this shape. Yeah, see, I can see lots of weirdness, lots of goodness happening out there online. That's great. No, weirdness is a pro. That is a plus. Embrace it. Okay, and then allow yourself to come back to stillness. So that's one. Okay. The other one, we're going to move on to the practice, but just more so that it's here. And then if you're checking this out after the fact online, this is a kind of a intensity-wise, we'd be kicking it up, and it's to move from your downward-facing dog to your upward-facing dog, leaving your toes in the original position. The only thing I would say here is that you have to be very, very mindful as you move through that, because it can stress the low back. As long as you're like you've toned your belly and you're moving through with purpose, and you kind of, it feels like a safe movement, you're good. But if not, you stay with the original shape, but it's down dog and then forward into your up dog and back and forward, moving with your breath. Okay, so my toes never untuck. I'm kind of locked into position on the mat. Sort of more like a dog push-up. Okay, there it is. Yo, question? Yeah, go ahead. No, fair enough. And that's that. Not at this time. Totally, yeah. But now, and I guess that what I would say there is, Deb, because that's a really great point. Again, just in the interest of not even making it accessible, well, obviously that, but just like how much time do we have in our days to actually like roll out the mat and do this? Again, we're walking by tables, or we're near tables. I didn't say walking by, I assumed that, but near tables most of the day. So you could be in your, your table dog, and then you can bring it the other way and just, bring your hips forward and get a little bit that way and play with it. So, but yeah, and that'll be easier on wrists, as you say. Okay, how are we doing time-wise here? I'm 30. Okay, we're okay. Let's move to plank and belly next. So we're moving kind of sequentially. We're going to end up on our backs. And where do I want to go? Let's start with Sphinx pose. So we're going to come down however you want to get there, okay, onto our bellies. And what I'm going to, actually I'm going to have to move the mat back because I feel like I'm coming at a shot. The crack production team that I employed took the week off. Haha. No, it's right. It's funny. You can see some of the curated like yoga videos that people put out online. I'm like, oh my gosh, they've got like a lighting box and multiple camera angles. It's like, anyway, yeah, we're decidedly old school here. Okay, as evidenced by the dog's tail popping up into the frame. Okay, so Sphinx pose, elbows under shoulders. Notice the tendency for shoulders to kind of roll in. So I'm emphasizing it. If you're looking at me here, I'm overemphasizing it. Instead, we want to be, as much as possible, broadening through the fronts of our shoulders here. Okay. Fronts of our hips and thighs, everything on the ground, including the tops of feet and toes in all likelihood. Okay. Now, those could come up. You can see I've kind of worked them up, but we're sort of down like this. Okay. And we're just holding here and breathing. Just noticing how this is sort of like intro to back bends, this position. Okay, this would be like I'm not even feeling like an upward dog today. Okay, in fact, you might not even be feeling like full Sphinx. You know what can feel nice? Is just crossing your arms and allowing your weight to come down a little bit further. So now my chest is still up, but my belly is fully down. Half Sphinx, okay? And then, of course, we have the days where that's not going to cut it. And you bring your forehead down onto the tops of your hands. I don't know, would that be 10% Sphinx? In any case. Okay. Sphinxing around, oh my gosh, the jokes, very nice. Okay, from this Sphinx pose, again, here, there's lots of places we could go. Like you can bring, if I turn myself, you could bring a foot back, you know, like you're trying to kick your own bum, just to play with that. You can potentially reach and bind and give yourself a little stretch. Like the legs can come out to the side. There's lots of places we can go, okay? None of which we even have to. Let's keep it really, but my point being, you get yourself down onto the mat, just start kind of playing with moving around in space. What happens when you switch your body up? Okay, what we're going to do though is we're going to move from Sphinx, and now here you have options. Okay, I'm going to show you option one is to leave your knees on the ground, forearms on the ground, and we're on this in this sort of mini forearm plank. Okay. Option two is to tuck your toes under and bring your hips up. And now it's a forearm plank. I guess more fully. Okay, final option, if you want to go really sort of bananas here, is to bring some of that cat back from sort of the opposite of a Sphinx and press up hips and upper back toward the ceiling. But that is, as I say, quite engaged. Or maybe you come down, and maybe you come all the way down. And allow your arms to come out in front. So there were a few different stops there. Maybe you tried one only, maybe you tried them all. But those are also interesting little stops. Like you can totally flow with that, being in your Sphinx, tucking your toes, coming up into a half plank, cat back, and back down, right? So, how are we feeling there? How you doing? Finding your limitations. Well, there now that's good. Playing with our edge is a good thing. That's you know, nothing ventured, nothing gained, as long as you're tuned in. Yeah, that's great. There it is. Yep, exactly. That's exactly right. Which is really, I mean, as much as there's been talk, you know, over the last number of years with, you know, injuries, yoga-related injuries, which are definitely a thing. They are, you know, injuries do happen, but genuinely there, and it's not to blame in any way the person who's hurt themselves on the yoga mat, but really that is why it's so important to be tuned into what you're doing. Even if you're tuned in, life's gonna happen, right? But yeah, as you say, Deb, that's quite right. There becomes a connection with your body to a point where, yes, there are sort of danger zones where it starts throwing up red flags saying, not so much of that, or, you know, that's enough. Okay, speaking of that's enough on our bellies. Let's come and find ourselves. And again, you can transition however feels right. And we're gonna come to, we wanna go. Let's actually, I was debating, what have we got time for? Yeah, let's come here to this sort of ready position. So almost like you're seated in a chair, but there's no chair, okay? Feet are flat on the floor, knees are bent, hips coming down where your seat's making connection with the ground, okay? And then you can even bring your hands and just place them onto the tops of your knees. Now this is an engaged position. You're having to definitely recruit engagement in the feet, the fronts of the legs, the fronts of the thighs, toning your belly, lifting your spine and your head up toward the ceiling. Okay, so there's a lot going on here, right? In fact, you can even just play with that, inhaling the arms up and maintaining that position. If you're wondering what that looks like at the side here, right? So it's not this where we're slumping. We're up on the forward part of our sitting bones. We're hugging in, we're hugging up. We're here, we lift. Okay? And then from there, let's bring both legs as close together as they come. They may meet, they may not. And bring both hands in behind our knees. Okay? And then tip back, not rounding the spine, instead just bringing your head and your shoulders back in space so that your heels maybe get light. And it might not be two, it might be one. And then the other one. Okay? Or maybe both come up. And then here, holding in whatever position of boat feels right. Okay, maybe you're here, maybe you're here, maybe the legs come straighten and come up. Okay, not a competition, but you're holding with stability, and then let it go. Just a little, I'm shifting around from side to side just to release the fronts of the thighs. You can even bring your thumbs down, just kind of dig them in there along the front. Okay. So, in theory now, we're working pretty hard there in that pose. So, even down here, like, stability can feel like a lot of effort, a lot of movement. But here's where we can actually work in a little bit of play. So, come back up once you're ready. So, reset. Okay. Come together, hug, hold, tilt, and lift. That's me trying to be spare, not teacher-like in terms of my language, as we were talking about earlier. Okay, we're here now with your body up. You can play. Maybe it's tapping. What happens when I tap one heel down? Can I maintain position with the other? What happens if I reach down and try to tap fingers? And there. Okay, what happens if I try to bring up my hands? What happens if I try to look up to my hands? Whoa. And let them go. And that's a long hold. Maybe you crapped out of that 10, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Maybe you said 10 seconds before that. Forget about it. That's it. That's enough. That's like, ew, and it's over. Yeah, exactly. Nice. Okay, one little stretch just to release the fronts of our thighs. If this does not feel good, what I'm about to show you, not that it wouldn't, but a simple low lunge with your back knee grounded, just as effective. Okay, you square your hips and really just opening the front of the hip. But since we are down, okay, what I thought we'd do is lie down, roll onto one side. You can prop your head up with the hand, and then allow your body, before you even try to sort of curl back and reach or get into anything like that, notice a couple of things. One, can you make your body as straight as possible? You can use the other hand here, at least initially, just to steady yourself. Okay? Can you lift away from the ground, right at kind of the side of your hip, so just up above the hip bone, okay, like kind of love-handly area, if you follow me. So you're not feeling that pressing actively like you're pressing your weight down into the mat. Instead, you're actively lifting away, okay? And then begin to bend the knee of the upper leg, okay? We're doing this first without your hand, without your arm. Instead, it's all about the leg. Can you bring your knee back in space? You can still steady yourself with that other hand. That might be enough right there. This is a really active way of releasing the hip, okay? Like, so for me, this feels really nice, even though it's super engaged. Maybe though I want to relax. And again, if this isn't accessible, this is where you could loop a strap, okay? Or we reach down. Notice that tendency to collapse. So come back into what feels like alignment. It can be tough to tell, but go with what feels right. And really working that knee back, hugging the heel toward the bum. But really, all of that effort back here is about releasing the front of the hip up here. We'll let it go. And then we'll just roll across our back and onto the other side. This is all, by the way, in interest of having a relaxed corpse pose without the fronts of your hips pulsing from all of that boat work. Okay, so we're here, we're in line, we're not slumping, okay? Again, which isn't, like, I'm not trying to be a scold or anything, it's really just about putting yourself into a position so that your body's not avoiding the work, so to speak, that you're trying to set up for it. Okay, it's not slumping out of it. Bring the heel back, maybe bring the hip out back in space. Okay, and you can stay there in that more active, engaged stretch, or reach, hug, hold. However you're doing it, not trying to ramp things up. Not necessarily trying to slow them down either, but just being okay with what's happening. Let that go. Roll back. Make any little adjustments you need to, which in my case is taking my glasses off, which are all steamed up. Lowering the lights a little bit. And finding a relaxed position. So that could be seated with your back up against the wall or a cushion. That could be bringing your legs into constructive rest, where you sort of just gently toe in, allow the knees to drop in toward one another. That can feel more restful, particularly for low back, if you don't have a cushion to put under your legs. Or into a traditional pose. But really here, a couple of minutes together, down regulating, letting the practice integrate into your body. So this is the kind of noticing how you feel. So leave us all in silence, but don't leave yet. Stay with your body, stay with your breath, without trying to control either of them. coming back in. Slowly though, slowly. Maybe you wiggle your fingers and your toes. I like to rotate wrists and ankles, just kind of waking everything back up. It's the process of really listening in to what your body wants. Point your toes, point your hands up overhead if that feels accessible. Really big inhale. And then sigh. Let it go. Let it all go. And rolling into a comfortable position, maybe on your side. If you do, if you bend your elbow, you can kind of catch your head, your upper arm, built-in pillow. Left hand, if you've rolled onto your right side, comes down onto the floor, and then bracing with your legs, press yourself up. And allow yourself to come back into the world. And what did I say before the practice? That Henry the yoga dog has been full of beans all day, and that he would be all over me through this practice and bothering us. But that normally, no, he does his one down dog and then he sits and watches. And what do I see as I come out of corpse pose? This little bullet of a cockapoo, just trained, watching the practice. He's centered. Yeah, he knows. He's that dog. He's more centered than I am anyway. Okay, how? Well, the other dogs would, I think that, like I was saying at the beginning of the practice, Henry, I've known him since he was a baby, and I was way deep into my own practice and teaching and so on. So he's been on a mat almost every day in his whole life. So it sounds silly. It sounds like, proud dad. But he practices with me all the time. He meditates with me. He knows the score. All right, let's close it out. And I'm glad that we included him in, because dogs are part of the practice, or at least part of my practice. All right. However it is that you choose to sign off, maybe just a moment, thank yourself. Thank yourself for making the time in your day. You call to mind someone or some event or something you want to kind of just pour yourself into. Whether it's sending a good intention somewhere, or gratitude, or just, again, the good stuff. There's a lot of negative always floating around, so can you just kind of grab that feeling of good while it's there and send it out. Okay? So that's why for me it's peace in, peace out. Thank you all, as always, I have to thank you, because without you, it's just me talking to a camera. You're so welcome. You mean if through ET? No, I haven't with ET. Not yet. There's always been at least a couple of people. But I did once, a few years ago, when I was teaching it was an 8 a.m. Friday morning class, and it was the Friday just before, it was like the 22nd or something. It was right before Christmas. And a huge snowstorm blew in. And I struggled to cross and got there. I was like, oh my gosh, all stressed out just from the travel. And no one came. And it was magic. As much as I love practicing with everyone and I wanted to teach, I miss my people to be sure. But that morning, it was just like, oh my gosh, I've got this next hour and a half in an empty yoga studio on my own. It was just like... Santa was good to me just that one day. Yeah, for sure. Any requests or anything that anyone would like to explore for meditation next week? Bye out there, internet land. I'm going to stop the tape.